Over the last 20 years, we've watched the world migrate from on-premise to the cloud. First it was storage, then compute, and now it seems to be taking over everything, including AI. So in this video, I'll break down the cloud migration and ask an important question. Are we heading in the right direction? Imagine you invited somebody into your home to help out. They seem trustworthy and they promise to make your life easier. No more fixing things yourself, no more maintenance headaches, no more worrying about whether the tools are up to date. They did all that for a while. One morning, you walked into your kitchen and you saw them standing at your stove. They were cooking, using your pots, your ingredients. And when you asked what was going on, they smiled and said, "Don't worry, I'm just helping." Then they changed the locks. Then they're charging you rent for your own kitchen. That's the story of software as a service. It started with one company and one slogan, but that moment changed everything. San Francisco in 1999, a former Oracle executive named Mark Benioff had a really radical idea. He thought, what if businesses didn't have to buy software at all? They could just sort of rent it over the internet. He launched Salesforce with a slogan that became a battle cry of no software. The logo was literally the word software inside a red circle that had a line through it, like a no smoking sign. And software was the enemy. And Benioff was right here to save you from it. And you know what? At the time, he was right. So let's be fair what software as a service or SaaS actually delivered. In the early days, it was genuinely good. You got software that was always up to date. You got automatic backups. You got access to teams of engineers working around the clock to keep things secure and running. You got to convert massive capital expenditure into predictable operating costs. For small businesses especially, SaaS was transformational. Suddenly you could access the same tools as the big players, and you didn't need a server room and you didn't need an IT department. All you needed was Wi-Fi and a subscription. Salesforce proved that the model worked, and then everyone else piled in. Google moved your documents into the cloud. Microsoft followed. Workday took over HR. ServiceNow took over IT service management. Slack took over communication, and Zoom took over meetings. One by one, every function of your business moved into somebody else's house. And for a while, that felt like real progress. And here's where the story gets a little bit uncomfortable, because somewhere along the way, the visitor stopped being a guest and they started to act like they owned the place. The SaaS vendors looked at all that data flowing through their systems, your data, your customer information, your business processes, and they had a realization. We're not just hosting their software, we're sitting on a gold mine. Try leaving Salesforce after 10 years or migrating off Microsoft 365. You have to explain to your finance team why you need to spend money and rebuild every workflow from scratch just because you want to switch vendors. You can't. You're locked in and they know it. The subscription that started at $50 per month is now $200. The simple pricing model became a 45-page enterprise license agreement. And the vendor that promised to free you from software has become the very thing that they claimed they were fighting. I believe humans are hardwired to own things. We want to see things and touch them and hold them. I mean, there's a reason why people still buy vinyl records when streaming is far more convenient. There's a reason why we frame photographs and put them on the wall instead of just keeping them on a cloud drive. Ownership isn't just about utility, it's about identity. It's about the things that we control and knowing that something is ours. When computers lived in offices, people could understand them. Maybe not technically, but viscerally. You could walk into a server room and see the lights and you could hear it humming. You could point and say, that's where our data lives. But when everything moves to the cloud, people start to get nervous, and they have every right to be nervous. Companies are spending millions on software they don't own, storing data in places they can't control, running on infrastructure they've never seen. And these three things are forcing everyone to wake up. First, the costs have become insane. When every vendor raises their price faster than inflation year after year, the numbers eventually break. CFOs look at their SaaS spend and ask the questions that should have been asked a decade ago. Second, AI has changed everything. Large language models need to train on data, and clean data, organized data, and your data. Suddenly, everyone's reading the fine print of those terms of service and wondering, what models does my data go into? Who's training their models on my information? And what am I actually agreeing to when I click accept? And do I really have a choice? And thirdly, latency. That matters again. When you're running AI inferencing, you need real-time decisions. Milliseconds mean money, and suddenly you have compute other side of the world somewhere it doesn't seem to be so clever. The model that freed us has now become a model that owns us. So here's what I believe. The pendulum is finally swinging back. It's not going to swing back to what it was in the 90s. Nobody wants to see a return to big server room nightmares. But we are moving towards something new, something hybrid, and something that puts intelligence back to where it belongs. Close to the data, close to the decisions, and most importantly, close to you. So let's look at what's happening. Apple is betting everything on AI on device, not a cloud, on device, using your phone, your laptop, your iPad. And they do that because they don't want your data leaving your hardware. The smartest companies that I work with are asking different questions now. Not which cloud provider we should use, but how should we use the cloud effectively and what can we keep back home? Storage, fine. Leave it out in the cloud. There are big economies of scale there. But for compute, I'm not so sure. Maybe we'll start to see a shift back to on-premise so we can regain control of our own algorithms and rules. And for AI, I think that's coming back in-house. Now, I'm not going to say that SaaS will disappear overnight and you should build everything yourself. That ship has sailed for most organizations. But I will ask you to think about something else. Salesforce's original premise wasn't wrong. The idea of not maintaining your software, not maintaining your servers, that made sense, and it still makes sense for a lot of workloads. But I think we've taken a good idea and stretched it too far. We didn't just outsource our infrastructure, we've outsourced our thinking. The companies that will thrive in the next decades will be the ones who work out what to rent and what to own. They'll use SaaS for commodity functions. They'll use the cloud for scale when they need it, but they'll keep their intelligence, their decision-making, and their competitive advantage close to home where they can control. The visitor came to free you from software, but then they made you dependent on their subscriptions and their infrastructure. And now they're charging you rent to use your own data. And you're still thanking them for the convenience. The question isn't whether SaaS was a mistake. It wasn't. But somehow we've gone from liberation to landlord. So the question is, what are you going to take back? And that question has never been more important than now as we enter this new age of AI. If you found this thought-provoking, please subscribe and I'll see you in the next one.